Okay, up to now we've been talking about the 3 R's: roles, responsibilities, and rewards. Let's talk now about a little bit about how these three factors align with each other and what type of equilibrium you can they provide, right? And why do we want to know that? Okay, well, you want to know that because if you have a misalignment in relationships, roles, and rewards, it can have a huge impact on the startup itself. It could even actually cause the startup to blow up. In the case of Blogger, if you remember, Evan's decision to found with his friend Meg and share decisions was at odds with his motivation to maintain control of the company. So her status as a close friend, and coupled with the fact that Evan was always sharing decisions with her, eventually caused her to believe that Evan was not the primary decision maker, and that eventually caused the team to break up. Okay, so if you look at this kind of triangular effect of relationships, roles, and rewards, there is context and linkages among these things, right? The relationships aspects is, are you doing friends and family, or are you doing acquaintances, or are you doing past coworkers? Do you have a homogeneous team or a diverse team? And when it comes to rewards, are you doing equal splits or unequal splits when it comes to equity? And do you have a static, meaning non-changing agreement for these types of rewards? Or is it an agreement that's dynamic based upon future performance? And then finally, the roles aspect of this is, do you have the overlapping roles, the egalitarian approach, or do you have a hierarchical approach where you divide the labor up, okay? So it's important to understand that these things are all linked to each other. Solutions to these are have to make sense both individually and collectively, okay? So, and if you don't, the problem is that it will lead to a set of decisions that are at cross purposes. And at best, misalignment can cause tension in the team. At worst, it can blow the team up. So the multiplier effect of these 3R decisions is important to understand, okay? The concept of alignment in these things is an important tool to troubleshoot problems that may come up in the organization and resolve tensions among the founding group. And it's a structured approach, and it helps you understand what type of misalignments exist and helps you resolve them and create a new equilibrium, okay? But like most everything in life, certainly in the entrepreneurial world, almost all decisions are kind of a trade-off. Even the best decisions have risks and have benefits. So, you know, if you have these things aligned, the risks and benefits are brought into a more productive equilibrium. So, linking relationships and roles, okay? So, the question is, how do your prior relationships influence this issue of assigning roles, right? Is there an optimal way to delegate roles depending upon the prior relationships you had with the people that you're founding the company with? So let's look at 3 different examples, okay? The first one is, I'm going to found with friends and family. And so you have a prior relationship, obviously, with family and certainly with friends as well. So the prior relationships implies 2 expectations. One is what we know from the prior experience with this person, and that they won't hurt our feelings, they won't double cross us, and they won't throw away the relationship for the business. Now, I've seen examples where it certainly friends have, and I'm sure that there are examples where family has as well. But the thing about it is, if the prior relationships are founded based upon non-work experience, that can be a real problem. Why? Because you don't know how the person acts in the job, right? And the example of that is the Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs case study about the Apple company, okay? So in relatives and friends, you know, they only have power over us to the extent we allow them to. So what role structure, when it comes to the roles, is implied by this, right? It implies an egalitarian role, right? And we already know some of the negative aspects of egalitarian roles, okay? So what's the next one? Founding with coworkers, okay? Now, this is a little better, I think. And if you remember, my co-founding experience was always with someone who I'd worked for in another company before we actually went and founded our companies. So you know, when you have prior workers, it's more natural to adopt this hierarchical structure, which we think is more positive, particularly if one of the people is more experienced or worked for the other person. Now that's my case is a perfect example of that, because I was a senior person in the company. My co-founder was basically hidden away in the bowels of the development group and totally underutilized. They didn't understand this guy's talent. So I kind of discovered him, and I kind of brought him up in the organization to where he actually eventually became a colleague of mine, and I knew what type of capabilities this man had. So, and that, he never had a problem with me when we founded companies being the CEO. That was never even discussed. We started a company, we just simply said, okay, I'm the CEO, you're the CTO, let's get started. So these roles and relationships can actually reinforce each other and therefore create less tension. But you know, as always, tensions can arise if the actual roles and relationships get out of alignment. Now the final one we'll look at is founding with strangers, okay? So when it comes to this, this founding a company with a quote unquote stranger, the relationships and roles must be aligned in terms of how you divide the labor and the hierarchy. And that just makes sense, because if you have a stranger, you're going to know that person's skill sets and their background, education, and experience, and it makes sense to assign them a role based upon that background. So choosing a co-founder with which you've had no prior relationships affects the degree to which you can define their role. So it's kind of difficult, right? But at the end of the day, it's aligning the roles and relationships is difficult because there's no relationship there. So at first, what you do when you bring in strangers is you clearly adopt a division of labor. Okay, I need a technical person, so I'm hiring a technical person, and they're going to be a technical person, right? And hopefully they have the type of skill sets that they can grow with the company. But as the relationship develops, this could actually cause a kind of a reallocation as you get to know the person. So, okay, so each of these different founding scenarios, founding with friends and family, founding with coworkers, founding with strangers, all have their own strong points, and they all have their own potential dilemmas that you should be aware of depending upon what the nature is of your founding team.